Welcome to Hooked on Songwriting, the podcast where songwriters reveal the fascinating stories behind their songs and much more. Now here's your host, Luanne Hunt.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hooked on Songwriting, the Songwriters podcast. One of the things about today's music that I'm not too fond of is that most of it sounds the same. I mean, if you really listen, all the girl singers have the same voice and the music is very similar. You don't hear much variation from one song to the next in the different genres. And that's why I'm excited to bring you today's guest. Her name is Alivia Hunter. And I saw her a few months ago at a folk festival and I was just enchanted. Alivia is an incredible writer for her young age. She has so much wisdom and insight into the themes that she writes about. And she also writes about things that you wouldn't expect, that are just very different. Her voice is divine, and again, it doesn't sound like anybody out there. It's just her unique sound. So I think you're really going to enjoy listening to her share about her songwriting process and her background and what her future goals are in the music industry. So let's get started and welcome Alivia Hunter to the program. So hello, Alivia. So glad to have you here on the show today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting. I saw you at that folk festival a couple months ago, and I was so impressed by your artistry. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
I think we should start out just talking a little bit about how you got where you're at now. Did you sing and perform when you were a child? What's your background?
Well, it's something of a long story because I have been a regular yearly attendee of the Florida Folk Festival in White Springs at Stephen Foster since the year I was born. I think the only year that I missed was the 2021 that got canceled. I started playing there. The first year I played there was in 2021. So I have kind of a long background with the Florida folk scene. My grandmother lives near the White Springs Folk Festival, and that's where my mom grew up. And so she took my mom and my mom took me. And so my family's super musical, especially my mom. It was really important to her that all of us kids knew how to play an instrument. I have 4 younger siblings, and we all play together now, which I really enjoy. And I've always tended to make musical friends. So pretty much all my friends now I play music with fairly regularly, at like family dinners or music parties or jams. I have been singing since I knew what singing was. The instrument playing came later. I started learning guitar when I was about 9. And then after that, I learned flute and dulcimer and all kinds of fun things. But I started singing pretty much when I could talk, and I would walk around the house and I would just sing my feelings. And when I was small, it was very dramatic. It was sort of in lieu of tantruming. I would walk around and I would ask, like, can we go to the park? And if my mom said, oh, not today, it's raining, I would say, my soul is a rain cloud. It was something like that. And to an extent, that's still kind of high, right? So I've always made up songs, and I started writing them down when I was probably 9. Oh, that was when I started playing guitar. And that was when somebody told me that songwriting was something. I just thought it was something everybody did. Somebody asked me, how can you do that? Why are you doing that? I was like, oh, maybe I should write something down. That's kind of my early story. And since then, I've been in every musical thing I could get my hands on. I was in marching band during my high school years and the women's chorale at UF. I just finished up there now. And I play music with my family and my friends. And yeah.
So it sounds like it's just your life.
It is. It really is.
Yep. I had a friend who was a really great songwriter, and he had bands and things like that. And he told me one day, he said, you know, I didn't pick music, it picked me. And I thought that was just such a great way to put it. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I used to think that every lullaby that my mother sang me was something that she wrote. Like, it was just something I thought like everybody did. They just sang right out of their heads. Um, and so yeah, I think I definitely did not pick it. It definitely did pick me. And there's to an extent, it's something that's a little bit inescapable. Like whatever I do, it's gonna be musical.
I get that. I get that because I'm super creative and I have to always be doing something creative or I don't really feel right,
Yep.
if you know what I mean. I'm kind of amazed that early on in your life that you had this songwriting gift because most people don't even think about that when they're young, you know?
I think for me it was the most apt and authentic way that I could find to express my emotions. So rather than just walking around saying, I'm sad, because that didn't cut it for me. I was I was very emotional. And still I think the music that I make is the most accurate representation of the way that I feel or like the things I think about. I'm a bit awkward in conversation and other sort of social things like that. So I think music is a way for me to connect with other people in a way that we can all understand.
It is the universal language, like they say. Since I did see you live, I was really intrigued by a lot of the themes in your music because I know you like to write about mythological characters and you took the song Clementine and created another story with it. And I was like, wow, that's amazing that you have that insight like that. It's because most people, they're sitting there, they're writing love songs and they're writing songs about things they see in the world or whatever. But you kind of went deeper and got really into some area of songwriting that is, it's mystical.
I have been very interested, borderline obsessed with Greek mythology since my childhood. My mom homeschooled us, and she liked to leave books sort of discreetly lying around for us to look at. And one of the ones that I picked up was Dolores's Book of Greek Myths for Kids. And pretty much ever since I read that, I have been hooked on the stories because I think something about the fact that they've lasted so long speaks to the way that they can articulate the human experience in a really like deeply understandable way. It's what I studied in undergrad. So I just graduated. I was a classics major, and I was inspired by all of the things that I've studied since my childhood. In all of my music, I have a song for Icarus and a song for Atlas and all of the characters. But yeah, I think mythology resonates really deeply for me because it is just like some of the most ancient stories that are being told and are still being told today and retold and reimagined. And I love every modern reimagining of myth that I've seen. But I think that the stories have lasted so long is a really beautiful thing. And I think part of it is due to the way that they speak to humanity and like common humanity in some ways.
I think it's educational for young people too, because you were of high intelligence, obviously, when you came into the world. So you saw the value, you understood what was being said and communicated through these tales. But most kids are not going to go there in their head. You know what I'm saying? So I think what you're doing is incredible because if you can get a younger audience, it can change the way that they look at life through these stories. So I was just like, wow, because I've never ran into anyone or heard any music that people were doing that, right? Like they're creating art, but it's also so educational and it's deep, really.
I think that many people are held back by the idea that it isn't for them, or like I'm not the kind of person who could write a song, especially like kids who are nervous or shy or grow up nervous, or like being told things that are like the music isn't important, or that it's frivolous, or that you should be focusing on something more important. I really think I've gotten the opportunity to be an instructor at Sandy's Music Girls, which is a music camp. And also, I have been a counselor at Girls Rock Camp in Gainesville. And in both of those things, I was able, well, for the Music Girls, I actually was able to teach a songwriting class. But for both of those things, I ended up talking to the girls, and they said things like, how can you do that? I really want to write songs, but I don't think like I'm the kind of person who can. And I really think there isn't like exactly a kind of person. I think it's just like maybe sitting and listening or something, and then just being confident enough to say it all out loud. I was a very confident child, and I wrote very, very many very shallow songs um, before I started writing things that I felt were worth writing down. I think just saying it all is really important, and then sitting and listening to the world and what it's saying, because there's really music everywhere, I think.
That's true. And for those who maybe think they can't do it, it's really often just a matter of trying it. Just
Yep.
don't worry about whether you're not any good at it or if you fail the first few times. Just try it. I did that with songwriting. My late husband, he started writing songs and he wrote them in his head. He didn't even have an instrument, and they were incredible songs. But then I started thinking maybe I could do it, you know? And at first I had to write them in my head too, because I didn't know guitar or piano or anything. And finally I taught myself some chords on the guitar so I could write better. But I remember it seemed also mysterious until I actually tried it and started figuring it out.
I think that really is how it goes. You just have to say it or write it down, and you don't ever have to show it to anyone. That's the beautiful thing. I have so many things I've written that are just for me and my living room, you know?
Yeah, it's something that's very therapeutic. You know, you don't have to have aims to become a big famous star or songwriter or anything. You can just write for your own enjoyment and for an outlet. Because I know a lot of times in life when something's happened to me that was unpleasant and I've written a song about it, I sort of get it out of my system. And I'm sure you relate.
I really do. Yep. Yes, that's exactly it. All of the sadnesses and anxieties and experiences that I would just rather not have happened, I have found that if I write about them, they're lighter.
Yeah, there's something about it that changes everything. Just getting it out there in the universe, you know. So when you write, do you get the lyrics first, or do you do like sort of the melody and the lyrics together?
Okay, so this has actually changed for me. When I was younger, I would always just hear words. I would just like it would be like I would get a phrase stuck in my head, and then I would just be repeating that phrase over and over again. And then eventually I would find a melody, and then I would sing it over and over again, and then more words would come. Now it really depends on the song, or on the concept, I guess. Recently, I opened up my notes app while I was riding in the car, and I just wrote down a whole list of song titles. And one day they're going to be songs, and I don't know what those songs will sound like yet, but I know what they're going to be called. So it is really variable. Um, and especially since I learned to play the flute, I've found that tunes will come into my head now. So before I would be humming something and it wouldn't go anywhere. But now if I'm humming something and I have a tune, I can just hit record on my phone and play it on my flute for a minute, and then I'll have a nice tune that later I can put words to. The recording devices have really revolutionized my songwriting game, especially since I found out you could record 2 vocal tracks in GarageBand and harmonize with yourself. Because I would always hear harmonies in everything that I would sing, but I can't sing twice like live. So it's been really good to have the recording things for that. So yeah, I used to have lyrics first, and now it really depends. I'll often have a melody first, or like a little chord progression on the guitar. I'll just be playing around.
Yeah, for me, I almost always write lyrics first. But it was funny because my late husband, because he wrote the songs in his head, they both things would come out at once, and he would sing them like they were already done. And I'm thinking, that is so bizarre. It's like I'm struggling for a great melody with these lyrics I wrote, and he just sings it out like it's nothing. It was amazing that he could do that. But I'm sure that the themes that you address in your songs are important to you in some way, just beyond just wanting to tell a good story, right? I mean, as an artist, we all have something that we want to say. So outside of those songs where you're telling stories, what kind of stuff have you written that's more of a personal nature, that's about your journey specifically?
Funny you say journey. I have a lot of songs about travel and like the journey that is life or something. I wrote a lot about anger in my teenage years, a lot of anger. Really, I think my songwriting has followed me through all of my different stages in life. So I have a lot of songs about, like, I have love songs and I have hate songs, and I have songs about death, and I have songs about living and how long life is. And a lot of my songs are angry with some hope or something. Anytime I will learn about something that I would rather not have learned about, or hear something on the news that's really painful, I find it's good to like get it out in that way, to be angry about it and then to have hope. And I think that's something that I do, that I try to do in my day-to-day life, the same way that I'm able to do in my writing. That it's harder in life than it is in words.
That's a good quote. That's a real good quote. One of the other things that impressed me about you was that you didn't sound like anyone else. You didn't sound like anyone vocally, but you didn't also sound like anyone as far as your songs and the melodies and things. So I wondered, when I was sitting there, I wonder, who is she influenced by? Is there any artist, or, because you weren't copying anybody, which I was like, that's awesome.
So when I was young, my mom gave me for Christmas an iPod Shuffle, and it was the kind where you had to press a button to learn the name of the song and who the song was written by. And I didn't figure out how to push that button for at least a year. And so I just sat there and I listened to all of the songs. And so I didn't know that any of the songs were by the same people for a long time. And she had put on that iPod Shuffle all of the artists that she loved and that she thought were necessary to get like a well-rounded music education. And so there was classical music and Vivaldi and the Beastie Boys and Dolly Parton and just lots of different sort of genres and influences. And there were a couple of songs on there that I would skip through the hundreds and hundreds of songs to get to them. And one of them was The Seeker, the Dolly Parton song. And that song in particular, I think is just glorious. And I would listen to it over and over again. And then Tracy Chapman's music. I did not know it was all Tracy Chapman until I was able to push the button and learn that that was the name attached to it. But her lyricism and her sort of vocal style is really gorgeous. And in particular, she has a song, Cold Feet, that I love, that I still cry every time I listen to it. And then I think I was definitely influenced by like the women in folk that my mom really liked growing up. So like Brandi Carlile, the Indigo Girls. The Indigo Girls are a big inspiration for me in my like group work and my collaborative work. Their harmonies are so cool and they work together really well. And then, okay, lyrically, I read a lot of poetry as a kid. And so Emily Dickinson and John Keats probably are my biggest lyrical influences as far as like meter and rhyme and themes go. And then musically, my favorite genre is the like Irish and Scottish instrumental folk music and sort of the like folk ballads and the ones with words too. Like I love Loch Lomond. That's glorious. I love that song. So when I was young, I was influenced mostly by individual songs. And so I would try to imitate those specific songs. And then now that I'm older, there are a couple artists that I definitely like, I find have influenced me heavily. Especially Hozier. He's an Irish artist. He does sort of like folk, pop, rock. He's amazing. But he has a few songs that I am really inspired by in particular. So yeah, I would say I definitely have been influenced. And I think I often find that nothing I write has been unique, as it turns out. I will write a song and I will be so proud of it. And I'll think, wow, no one else has written this. And then my mom will come up to me and tell me, do you remember that lullaby I used to sing you when you were tiny? And it was just exactly the same topic that you just wrote this song about. And I'll say, oh, no, I didn't remember that. But that is really interesting, I think.
It stays in your subconscious, you know?
Yep, for sure.
So, as you know, because I'm sure you listen to a lot of stuff that's out in the mainstream now. So there's pop and there's rap and there's hip hop and there's electronica and this and that, you know, and there's some folk, you know. But if you were going to be in the commercial marketplace as an artist, where do you see yourself fitting in?
That's an interesting one because I do not want to be a performer. I want to be first and foremost a writer for other people. I love collaborative songwriting and I've done it since I was little. And my honest hope for my music is that someone else will come along and want to take it from me. I have written songs in just about every genre. The only ones that I have found were good enough for me are the folk songs. So I think that's sort of modern folk is probably the genre that I fall into. And it's the genre that I enjoy listening to the most also. So I think as far as the music industry goes, I wouldn't really want to go be a pop performer. That sounds really painful. And I'm happy with the sort of American folk scene, and I would love to write for other people. And I think I would love to write pop if anyone wanted to pay me to write pop. I think it's a super fun genre and I enjoy listening to it. I am not a rap writer at all, although I do enjoy listening. I think it's a really interesting sort of poetic form, like rap and hip hop music, especially like those like intricate rhyme schemes are really cool.
I like it. I like it. I think, I mean, I don't like all of it. Some of it's just a little too rough, but there's some of it that's great, especially the hip hop where they combine the melodies along with the rap. I think it can be really beautiful. So I'm surprised with your beautiful voice that you don't want to be an artist. You know, it's funny because you sing so pretty. It's different.
Well, thank you. I do really enjoy performing, and I enjoy performing like for my family and for my friends and for all the friends that I've made like in the Florida folk scene. So I really like that, but I couldn't imagine myself being a performer on any kind of grander scale. It's right now it's more like I see it more as advertising for the music itself than as like the sole form of expression that I want to convey.
Yeah, I understand that. And anyway, all of a sudden in this world, there's really no big stars anymore the record labels aren't signing people because they can't really make enough money off of streams. It's insane how little you get from a stream. So I think the days of big superstars are gone anyway. So we have to find useful things for our music outside of that, right?
Yeah, sort of like different avenues. Yeah.
Yeah, some people write for film and television, and so yeah, there's a lot of different things we can do. I think we just have to get creative and think outside the box as far as how we can take our art into the world and utilize it for the greater good, right? Because yeah, I mean, even if you were trying to get a record deal, it would be a shot in the dark because how many people actually get a record deal, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't think you'd even want one from what you have to give up and do to get it.
Yep.
So what are you planning on doing outside of the music? Because it seems like it's kind of like a hobby, right? So what are your goals in life?
Okay. So my career goal is to be a book editor. Pretty much everything that I enjoy in my life sort of revolves around stories and storytelling. And I would love to be able to read for a job. And I also really like looking at very small details. And so I think editing will be a really good place for me. And I think I'll really enjoy it. So I'm going to grad school in August in North Carolina, actually, for English literature. Um, and so I'll study that. I'll read lots and lots of books. I will get so much inspiration from music. I am most often inspired by books and stories that I read. So I'm really looking forward to that. And while I am in North Carolina, I'm going to do my level best to get involved in the sort of folk scene there because I know there is one. I just have to find it.
Yeah. Well, we're getting down to the wire here on our time. Can you tell people where they can go and listen to your music or download it?
I have a website that's just aliviahunter.com. My name starts with an A, so Alivia. And then I am Alivia Hunter on YouTube and Spotify and Amazon Music. Pretty much anywhere you download your music, I'm on there. I'm Alivia Hunter. I have one album out currently. It's called Thoughts About Life. And it's all the songs I wrote from the time I was 7 to the time I was 17 that I thought were worth recording. And I am working on the production stages of an album with Victoria Griffin. And we recorded that over the winter and we're releasing it this year. And then
Thank you so
I'll be
much.
collaborating with her on her album in June. And then if you want to hear me live, I'll be at the Folk Festival at the end of this month, and in various other places, though not for as long.
So the Folk Festival is at the Stephen Foster Park, and that's on Memorial Day weekend, correct?
It is. Yep.
Well, that's great. And then you're going to be in my series on June 15th in the Villages.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, we are too. We are really excited. I think it's going to be a wonderful night. And to bring this kind of entertainment to the Villages is it's the opportunity of a lifetime because they don't really have anything here like this. So we're so happy to have you. And I'm so impressed by you. And you're an incredible artist. And I do hope that somewhere along the way that you get opportunities to perform a lot because I was just enchanted with what you did. And I know other people will be too.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be a part of this project. Thank you so much.